Straight from South Africa.
This is the strange
and mysterious world
With your hosts,
Lee Stratum and William Collinson.
Welcome to Season 1, Episode 5 of Strange and Mysterious World with William and Lee. And tonight we've got quite an interesting topic. It's a South African homegrown expedition, if you want to say. One of our own abductions / love story / I don't know what else you want to put it into. there's quite a lot to unpack with that Elizabeth Klarer story. But before we get on to there, so obviously we've got Diwali on tonight. So if there's a couple of bangs in the background, please, I'm not in Gaza. I'm in Durban. I think the guys misunderstood, with Diwali, the Festival of Light. I think they misunderstood. They got the wrong message and they thought it was Festival of Sound. But that's okay. I think we'll move on from there. How are you going with the Monroe Institute? Because I managed finally to get past disc 1. Wave 1, that the intro, but it took 3 times. I got because I spent a little bit of time in Johannesburg, and I got home early one night. So I thought, okay, cool, I'm going to do this now. And I sat in a chair, and I promise you, halfway I fell asleep, and then I woke up right at the end, and then I looked at it, I thought, okay, it's half an hour. Let me try again.
Yeah.
Went on again. Hey, fell asleep. 20 minutes in, I was tossing one way. Got up again, walked around a bit, had a cup of coffee, and I managed to finish the intro. So I got it. I can't actually believe. But when I went on to episode 2, which was back on the plane, I fell asleep. So I'm now stuck at the part 2 of the disc.
Okay, well, it sounds like, geez, I wish I could have something like that because you put me to sleep when I need to sleep.
It's going to take me a year to get past this series, the way that I'm going now.
But anyway, for listeners that are only listening, have come in and only listen to this episode, we did an episode. Our last episode was out of body experiences and how to induce them, and about a bit about the Monroe Institute and
yeah. So listen to the last episode.
Yeah.
Don't come and ask questions now. Go back.
Yeah, so we listen.
Go back and listen, man.
We're trying to listen to the gateway experience to induce these out of body experiences. I've actually got. It's funny. Last night I'm up to number 4. So I'm just looking at because I got a bit confused with the. I'm just trying to see
with the order.
Yeah, because like I got to. Let's see what it was called here now. It was discovery number 4, release and recharge. So I did
discovery. That's quite far in, dude.
It's just, I don't know if I've got them mixed up here or what's going on, but like I did 1, 2, 3, orientation, intro to focus 10. So that's what I'm missing, because I got up to number 4, and then last night, so I'm busy listening to it, and it tells you go through your, all the steps and whatever I'm going through them. And then halfway through, 15 minutes into it, it says, now start doing what you were told to do in focus 10 or something like that. And I'm thinking, like, what the hell? What was I supposed to do in focus 10? So there was a bit that, because obviously in each disc, it teaches you a little bit more of what to do. And then by number 4 there, you got to try and do it on your own.
Yeah.
So to focus 10, and I was supposed to do something about focus 10, and I didn't have a clue what this focus 10 was. So I'm like, oh my gosh, I must have missed something in one of the discs or something. I've missed something. So, but anyway, then I just listened to the rest and kind of drifted off a little bit. But it's funny, but then I got up because what I'm listening to at the end of them, I always feel very like awake. Like it's like I kind of drift off in them, like sleeping, and then when it's finished, I like feel very awake. And when I got out of bed last night, and I went to turn on some lights in the house, and I was feeling kind of floaty, like my whole body was like all like weird, like I was like floating like this. But yeah, that's as exciting as it's gotten, unfortunately.
Okay.
Amazing.
Listen, before we carry on, Will, I just wanted to give a bit of a shout out to. We've actually got a fan out in New Zealand. Her name is Catherine Holland. She sent us actually such a nice message. So thanks, Catherine, for following, and yeah, I hope to hear from you again soon, man. Much appreciated for your follow.
Oh, cool.
But anyway, back on to Elizabeth Klarer, the South African story.
Okay, cool, man. So what do you know about Elizabeth Klarer?
All right. So look, obviously being with Move On, I did do a little research prior to, while I was still with them. I do know the story. I have read the book, obviously, since then. And do you remember the American couple, Betty and Barney Hill?
Yes, yeah, very well-known UFO abduction story.
Yeah. So they were supposed to be one of the first, like it was in 1969, I think it was, they were abducted. But the Elizabeth Klarer story actually is way before that.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, she was born in South Africa, Moy River, which up in my end of the woods. Yeah, it's probably about an hour and a half, 2 hours away from me now. She's in KZN. She was born in 1910. Her first experience with the UFOs was, I think she was around about 7, so it was about 1917. She must remember at this stage, yeah, this is actually it wasn't a well-known thing at that time. So she's already reporting, or she's already seeing with her sister at that stage, they'd already seen this thing. And then it happened again, I think it was about 10 years later. And then again in the 1950s, it was in 1954, she had her first encounter with an alien being that apparently landed on their farm. And they struck up a relationship. Look, I'm going to very basics because the book, Beyond the Light Barrier, is like reading a science textbook at school. It's full of jargon. If you don't understand, if you're a scientist, you might understand a little bit more. But if you're not a scientist, you'll probably get bored very quickly. My wife tried to read it and she said, "Jesus, is this book the whole way like this?" My brain is like melting after the first chapter.
But that's also what made her so credible, was that she was invited to all of these amazing scientific conferences all around the world because of the knowledge that she had. And she said that she actually got it from this guy, Archon or whatever, that abducted her.
Correct, yeah.
And that's what made the story so fascinating, was like, how does this woman know? And in those days, women weren't like in high regard of like science and mathematics or whatever. They weren't really encouraged to go in that direction. And this woman had all of this knowledge, and it was just so intelligent, and like everyone was like, "Oh my gosh, how did she get all this knowledge?" And so it made the story really incredible.
Yeah, so when I was reading the book, I was on the, again, and I know I like to say this a lot, but I was a little bit on the fence with this one, because a lot of the stuff that she chats about, kind of, especially the scientific stuff, I think there's an element of truth to it. She mentioned a planet out in I think it was the Alpha Centauri star system that these guys live on. Apparently they live on 7 planets there. And they've only discovered one planet, I think it was early, like 2011 or something. They discovered a planet there, which is livable from our side here. So look, there's a lot of stuff that she spoke about, which made a lot of sense. It's the same story, with regards to humankind is not ready yet to receive any alien help, because we haven't reached that vibrational level yet. We're still too low in the vibration. We're very violent. We're aggressive. It's the same kind of story that keeps coming. With every abduction, you hear the same kind of stories, which is cool. I mean, I understand that. What made her story a little bit different is that she obviously mated with this Archon, and she went to their world Meton, which was out in the Alpha Centauri system, and she had a child, and the child obviously stayed with the father. She developed telepathic abilities, which she was able to communicate with him. The problem for me with the book was the story. The story kind of almost involved. Look, she was very clever. She was a clever woman. She used to fly aircraft back in the 50s. She was part of the Royal Air Force. So she wasn't stupid. She had a brain in her, and she knew her way around certain military, military areas. And saying that, I think the story, because it almost, L. Ron Hubbard would have actually loved writing a book about this, because as much as it was a scientific novel, there was a love story in it, but there was also like the Russians had developed some UFO, and the UFO had landed there, but it was a nut and bolt thing that you could see, and the Russians came out of the UFO. So I don't know. For me, that became a little bit too maybe science fiction.
Yes,
so I think there might have been a bit of.
I remember that, yes, because she said in the book that there wasn't just because the craft that used to come pick her up was seamless and it was smooth and everything, and then all of a sudden this other craft that came, and and it had pop rivets and it was like bolts in it and everything, and that actually landed there, and she could see the difference, that it was a different craft. But that's actually pretty fascinating. If that came out, what is the date you said
that was back in the 50s. That was like 1950. I think that incident was like in 1956. Round about there.
And also, what I found also fascinating is that she was going on about like that they want us to eat a vegan diet, and then the veganism only come like really popular nowadays, but like she was going on about that in the 50s, saying that that's how. That's like a whole new age kind of movement now, is that you want to get your vibration that high, you got to have a vegan diet and not eat any animal products whatsoever, not even milk. And she was going on about that in the 50s, saying that Archon, the alien, was telling her that you got to eat a fully plant diet to raise your vibration. I thought that was quite interesting as well.
So the interesting thing about the book was that although his first contact with her was back when she was 7 years old, he didn't really make contact with her back until it was the 1950s. And you must remember now, she's in her 40s at this time. So she had already been married twice. She's already got kids here on Earth. So she was only contacted then. And when she asked the reason, he said, it's taken you this period of time to get to the level of vibration and consciousness and understanding for us to contact you, which I found interesting. For me, that was interesting because it wasn't just a immediate contact. She had to get to a certain level before they would contact her. And in the book, the general basis of the book, he says that unfortunately human beings, they are on a self-destruct path. We can't work together, unfortunately, because we're in it for ourselves. We are not willing to help each other. And on this path that we're currently on, they can never contact us. We actually have to come out of that. We have to work together. We have to raise our vibration. Only then will they be able to come and assist us, which I understand. The other interesting thing that he mentioned, which we might have to delve into this at another stage, but he says they actually originated on Venus, the planet Venus, and it was the sun's radiation that actually caused the damage on Venus, and they had to leave. But at that stage they had already developed intergalactic travel. So they managed to find another home out in space.
I remember because that's what he was saying to her. He said that he's worried about Earth because of the sun. Like the sun is like, so worried. Like he's like, you guys are crazy because you got to. I don't know what he was saying, but he said I remember he was saying something with the sun that he's really worried about, and it's not going to end well.
Yeah, because you must remember the Earth's weather is governed by the sun's activity, and unfortunately, the sun is very. It's kind of in its older stages. It's not a young sun. It's in older stages. And every 11 years or so, it actually expands. And well, not the sun, but the corona, it gives out certain radiation.
Yes, and the sun, it's like the sunspots have like a certain a cycle over 7 or 11 years or something. And
11.1 years, yeah.
It's been very quiet over the last few years. That the cycle is supposed to go into, it hasn't gone into that.
Yeah.
Cycle, which is a bit worrying because maybe it's going to release something insane.
Correct. So that's what they're actually watching for. That's what they're waiting for.
The next thing's by fire. We're going to die by fire. Maybe that's the sun being some crazy sun corona. What's it? Ejection that's going to wipe us out. I mean, they say if one happens like it did in like when was the last huge sun's flare up that it fried all the what are those machines that you tap it burnt out all of the the very primitive communication thing that we had at the time, and they said if it happens now, it'll totally wipe out all the satellite communication and everything. But it was that, but it was big. I don't know. I don't know if it was in the. I can't remember, but there was one that wiped out. Telegram communication. Like whenever Telegram communication was available, it wiped.
That was back in the 1800s.
Yeah, and it made fires and everything in those places that dealt with that. And then they said if there was another one that big, it would wipe out all of our satellite communication. You would go totally like the world would be upside down for a while. It would not be good.
Yeah. So look, according to them, they inhabited Mars and then inhabited Earth. So there were 3 planets in the solar system that they inhabited, but the sun's radiation caused damage and destroyed most of Mars and Venus. Now, the interesting thing as well is he says that they actually created the pyramids. It was way before any of the Egyptians actually even came onto those lands. Those pyramids were created. And he says those pyramids are actually cosmic. It's a cosmic library. And that at some stage, we will understand it and we'll be able to unlock the secrets that are in the pyramid. So he said there's actually knowledge there. It's obviously didn't give us how to do it. Probably we haven't reached those levels yet. But that was interesting. So look, there was a lot of interesting things in the book. And I was having a look at it and I thought, besides the jargon, it's hard to get through, I promise you. Because like she describes every sea as like the sparkling sapphire of bright, beautiful. And I'm thinking, just say sea, man. You know what I mean? And the sunset is like this quartz sun that's dropping down the sea. And I'm just thinking, no, just say it's a sunset. Easy. The people that are reading the book we don't want to go back to school and understand and go through textbook again. You know what I mean? So
it's not it's like a poetical way, like description of how the sunset is. She's telling it like a scientific.
It's like heavily in depth, dude. It's like, wow, man, just say sunset. But anyway, barring that, there was a lot of nuggets of things that I thought were actually pretty cool and kind of lean towards things that I've always believed. So you know. I do think there's an element of truth in her story. I think there's a lot to consider, but I do think that perhaps she might have actually got a bit added in a bit of an L. Ron Hubbard type thing. You know what I mean? Where it's like the sci-fi where the Russians are trying to take over the world, and then you've got like the aliens that have managed to take the other aliens out, and they're there to save the world, and she was there to save the world. And I'm thinking, yeah, that's L. Ron Hubbard stories. But the rest of it was actually pretty cool.
But did she, because you said that we're not at a vibrational state to actually communicate with aliens or whatever, but what made her special? Did she try any, like, was she doing some meditation or yoga or, her vegan diet?
Yeah, so right in the beginning, so she had these feelings. I think that Archon might have been sending her. And she started developing, her telepathic abilities. What she started doing is like right early on in the early age, she started trying to communicate with dogs and plants and also horses, because she was quite into horses. And she over the years, she developed this ability, telepathy. She actually had an OBE, out-of-body experience. It's one part in the book where she actually mentions that she leaves her body. I think she was in her sister's house when it happens. So obviously she had got to a level or a point where she was able to do that. And I think she managed to make communication at that time as well. So yeah, it took years to get to the point. I mean, look, born in 1910, the first rendezvous with the Archon was in 1950-60. That's 46 years later. 1954, sorry. 44 years later, like an old bullet at that time. I mean, it's like you're not in your like early stages of life. You're like heading off towards the end there.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, I shouldn't be saying that. I mean, I'm already 51, so I'm hoping I'm not heading off towards the end. But you know what I'm saying? She's in the later years. She's not like an early, like a young bud.
Yeah.
So yeah, it took time. It took time for it to develop. So for me, it's possible. It wasn't like a quick meeting. She hadn't had any practice. She was developing her skills as she went along, and she managed to communicate with him. And he actually said to her, "If you hadn't developed this, I would never be able to communicate with you."
Also, you know what I find also fascinating about people that have had the communication experiences, or so they have. It's like, because I mean, I've also made a UFO documentary, and I've interviewed a lot of people in South Africa that have claimed to be in contact with aliens, and like they act like they're the chosen ones or whatever. But I'm always like seeing these people, and I'm just thinking like, you've been contacted by people, advanced civilization has traveled, found way more intelligent than us, traveled multiple light years, hundreds of thousands of light years to get here, and then they're supposed to be way more smarter than us, and then they choose you. And what are you doing with this? Like, it seems like some of the people I've met, like, and no disrespect to them, because I know some of them have been going through some crazy ordeals and stuff, but I'm always thinking like,
what's the contribution?
They picked you, and what is your contribution now? Like, and they always they're always too busy in their life doing this or they're doing that, and it's like, I mean, couldn't they have picked someone that was more influential in society, that could make a change or like do something? And they always pick up like people that have basically, like, some of them are, like, I mean, I don't want to be disrespectful.
Well, I can see what you're going to say.
Yeah. It's like, I'm like, what the hell?
Loser!
Yes. Light years across the galaxy, and they chose you. I mean, what is it? You've got no contribution, not even to society. Mind how you can help them. But anyway, but I'm just saying, Elizabeth, her story, it actually, they chose, I think, quite a decent person. I mean, she wrote a book, she got it out, she was invited to a lot of people, a lot of these influential kind of like
conferences overseas. Yeah, she did a lot.
So I think they did a bit of good homework there, and they nailed an okay one there. I mean, they could have taken Barack Obama or something. I mean, I think they would have been a bit more. But
I mean, sometimes you get these guys out. Hey man, I saw this UFO landing in the next yard, and this thing abducted me, and I found myself on the table, and this thing shoved something up my ass. I don't know. Why would you deal with people like that? I don't know, dude. Seriously.
Yeah. But anyway, but let's because I think Uga's waiting for us to give us a call.
Yeah, cool. Let's get on.
Let's just introduce her quick. So, well, thanks, Uga, for being here. Appreciate you having us, having you on the show. And,
buongiorno, come sta?
Bene, grazie, tu.
Bene.
Wow.
Is that it?
That's the extent of my Italian.
Okay, cool. So yeah, we want to just talk about this wonderful documentary you made, and well, firstly, we just want to find out, like, okay, well, so what made you interested in making this documentary?
Okay, well, so this story broke in the Huisgenoot when I was 8 years old in the 80s, okay? And it was written by Petrofna Metlerkamp, who back then sort of specialized in the more sort of out there subjects. And my mum obviously religiously bought the Huisgenoot, like, why wouldn't you? And I read this article and had my interpretation as an 8-year-old. And it wasn't the alien that got me. What really pissed me off at the time was the fact that, and I just remember this, she said that the spaceship lights blinded one of her cats. And being a cat person, I was really pissed off about that, because I just felt, if you're so smart and cool and fab, why don't you do something about the lights in your spaceship or fix the cat?
Yeah.
So, for this heavy alien that's so advanced, I just wasn't that impressed because of the cat. And then the story stuck. But I was also really fascinated, again, not necessarily by the alien side of it, but more Elizabeth Klarer, this female woman who did some pretty cool things, whether it was a lie or not. Let's for a minute take this as a reality. Yeah. Even so, and even if she did lie, what a brave lie to tell, to get people's attention, to get her message across.
Yeah, I thought, because I read the book, so I thought, I agree. I think there's a lot of things that were said that kind of seemed almost too sci-fi. We were mentioning a little bit earlier, like L. Ron Hubbard would have been in his element. But there's a lot of stuff where I was chatting to Will earlier, and I said it's a lot of text, like science textbook stuff, where it was like very scientific, which perhaps maybe for someone at that time may not have had that type of knowledge. I don't know. I'm kind of just taking a wild swing here. So there's a lot of stuff that kind of resonated with me with regards to what you mentioned in the book with regards to technologies and where we are and why they're not communicating with us and all those kind of things, which I actually find pretty cool. But your documentary is how's it doing, by the way? How's it going?
Well, it's always difficult to know without the actual stats, which only the streamer has. But IMDb is always a good, sort of neutral, because if you're on IMDb Pro, you can go and have a look there. And I mean, out of all the movies in the world, all shorts, television, whatever, I mean, that's what you're competing against there. And we topped 20,000. I think that's amazing for a small documentary from South Africa about a woman and an alien lover. Like, and we're getting very little, there's no advertising. We don't have this PR machine behind us. So, yeah, I don't know. It's hard to say. But I think it's going to be I think word of mouth is what is necessary here. And that takes time. But I can't really tell you how it's doing because I don't know.
And also just with your personal career, like, have you ever had any lashback? Is anybody going like, I mean, I know when I was, my documentary isn't out yet, but I mean, I was just sitting around the table with my family, with cousins and that, and then they heard I was making a UFO documentary, and they were not impressed. They were like, "Oh, come on, William, you're better than that." But
listen, that's why this film took 13 years to make, because everyone wanted to see it, but no one wanted to put money on the table. And then, I mean, now tastes have changed, platforms have changed, people are a lot more open to it. But that being said, I think there's a lot of people in the UFO community that is feeling quite offended. That's been made very clear to me. And I understand why, because obviously to me, I have presented all sides of the coin, and this coin seems to have 2010 sides, which is what makes it so interesting, I'd say. And this isn't a believer documentary at all. I mean, I specialize in female-driven heroine stories. This is an incredibly interesting female for me, and a flawed one, very flawed, in a good way, not in a bad way, like any good human is. And then, unpacking that. And there's a lot of people who believe, a lot of people who don't. I present a lot, as you know. I really present. You know what it is? I take everyone on the journey that I've been on with this insane, awesome, incredible roller coaster of a story. And I've just learned with my other films that I'm going to piss people off because I woke up in the morning. There's the people that's not going to get me. And or my film, or the people in my film, or that's going to puke, or they're going to go, I hate that film. That's okay. That's not who I made it for. I made it for the people who get it, for the people who it resonates with, for the people where it sparks debate and conversation, because this is one thing about this film. It certainly sparks conversation. And that's always first prize. And I mean, we've got a worldwide release, which is amazing. And that's why it's so hard to know how it's doing, because we don't have access to other countries. You've got friends in other countries, but your friends are, of course, they're going to watch because you're going to make them watch. But it's so yeah. But I think there are definitely people who feel offended because I didn't just go one way, and that's okay. And I understand why, and I respect their offendedness. It's fine. But I've learned now that the default setting of the human race is someone is always going to be pissed off and misunderstand you, or the message you were trying to do. So that's not why I'm here, about those who feel
Well, look, I actually saw the movie on Prime Video.
Great, thank you. Because I also saw it bloody pirated on every single possible site, which I suppose is a good sign.
Get the message out, man.
No.
But I must say, look, with regards to the South African documentary, which unfortunately we don't, there's not much overseas that shows what South Africans are actually capable of doing, besides the old Leon Schuster stuff. But it was actually pretty cool. I enjoyed it because you didn't pick a side, which is exactly what you said. So you had you showed the evidence of the possibility, and then you had the evidence of even the son said he wasn't too sure, and he wasn't really, involved with that. He didn't kind of believe this stuff. So you show both sides, which I think was actually pretty cool. So it left you at the end to decide for yourself whether you think it's the truth, or whether you think perhaps maybe she just kind of went off the rails a little bit and kind of came up with a nice love story. But either way, it was actually pretty cool.
Thank you. And you know what? I'm so glad you're saying that, because I think in life at the moment, we need a bit more than that. We need more of this, where audiences are intelligent. Everyone, and the other thing is, right, if we are 10 people in a room and we ask all 10 people, draw a house, every single piece of paper is going to look different, because your reality and your perception and how you experience something or make your decisions is based on a certain life experience that you had and maybe I didn't, because mine was different. And I think that's what makes this and the story of Elizabeth Klarer so complicated, because there truly is evidence to support some of the claims. And there's absolutely evidence to support hard lies. And there's evidence that leaves you with question marks. And we can go and decide for ourselves. Because I think if we just start deciding for ourselves instead of being spoon-fed, it's a much more interesting landscape. And maybe we can then start having conversations about it. Why do you believe? Why don't I? Where did you think the question mark was? Where didn't I? And, I think that's lacquer. That's sort of what I went for.
Look, I think the general message, that you try to get across was actually pretty cool. With regards to the human race, where we need to be, while we're on the track we're on, how we need to increase our vibrational levels to work together to be able to overcome our differences. That message, look, although it's been kind of done to death, it's a good message. It's a good message, and I think that's the takeaway at the end of the day of that book is that we need to be able to stop our cuck that's going on in the world and just put all our shit aside and work together to make things a better place.
And you can't judge her for that, because that is a solid damn message. And for me personally, I say this is an environmental film for me. And that this woman chose one hell of a way to get the attention of people, because generally out there, the environmental films that's out there speaks to the already converted. And the already converted isn't where the change needs to lie. We know how fucked we are at the moment with our planet. And the way we're treating the planet is just really, for me, a reflection of how we're treating each other. And that goes right back to her message. And the other thing that I keep on saying is, we are here on this planet. I don't give a shit about Archon, potentially, allegedly, whatever, and his people on their planet, because that's their planet, that's their business. Our business is here. We need to fix this before we start spending too much time and effort on other people. If that's their business, that's their planet. This is our planet. It's an incredible, bloody, beautiful ball. And we've got to just change our ways a little, and it starts at home. And I think that, for me, is the part of Elizabeth's story that I stand by and what resonated so deeply with me, even at the age of 8.
Yeah, 100%. Sorry, Will, what were you going to say?
No, I just talking about Archon there. I remember when I spoke last time, you said that you went into the movie thinking it was this, your first research when you started making the movie, like you thought this was this lovely love story between Archon and her, and then Just
the honeymoon phase.
tell me, just explain that again.
Okay, yeah, I call it like I was in a like it's all the elements of a abusive relationship.
Yes, it's just what you found out what
Yeah.
your archon really was, and
Yeah, because it starts off, the honeymoon phase. Everything is peachy. He puts his best foot forward. He brings you flowers. He's in his spaceship. He's that's quite a bloody a pickup line. Like me and my spaceship. Like, wow. I mean, I'd like to see someone who can beat that one. So you've got my attention, right? And but also remember now, age of 8, eh? And then fast forward to 2010. Here we go. And also we made all the mistakes of first-time filmmakers, like used our own money, like because we didn't think it was going to be a problem to make this. Like, how could it be? And you try and go walk around at ITFA and Hot Docs as a first-time filmmaker, trying to sell your documentary, which is non-fiction, about this woman and an extraterrestrial lover and this amazing scientific knowledge she had. No, that did not go down well, nowhere. But regardless, I stood my ground. The honeymoon phase was amazing. And then the castle in the clouds began to crumble a little bit. And I was like, oh, shit, I don't think this guy is so cool after all. And took me right back to the cat. And then I thought, okay, listen, let's just go environmental. This needs to be a just pure environmental film. We go talk to every single professor in the world, only to find that no professor in the world wants to talk to you the moment they hear alien, unless it's people completely on that side. And then it just gets very complicated. I was like, okay, no, scrap that idea. And then I started finding out all kinds of things. So we went from honeymoon phase and very esoteric to hardcore environmentalism to, you know what, back to the basics, where I went, you know what, the best, and this was the closest also I've ever come to giving up, and I don't give up. I mean, that's the only way you get a film made, is you don't give up. But this was the closest I ever came to giving up. And then in lockdown, I said to myself, I can't give up because of all the people that gave so much. Even the people who trusted me to speak on camera for the first time, like a son, like a family members. And I phoned my editor, Joe, and I said, Joe, because he had it he had the backup copy with him. And I said, let's just see what we've got. I haven't looked at what we've got for so long. And bless Joe, because if it wasn't for me and Joe and lockdown blues, I don't know what would have happened. But the point is, when we did that, I started seeing what we had and I started getting excited about it all over again and invigorated and going, you know what, the best way to do this is to just do it and take them on the roller coaster ride that I've been on. Authenticity. People, here's a story. She says this happened. And listen, for me, so remember, let's go back to honeymoon phase. And also for Elizabeth, this is ultimate romance. There's this guy who has been calling her name since the age of 8. Oh my hell, like same age as I was, or 4 or 5, whatever age she was, calling her name, trying to get her attention. In today's age, that's called grooming, okay? But we park that until she's old enough to go, because he needs to infuse his bloodline, because the bloodline is too pure, allegedly. So he grooms this woman that is the closest to what he feels is, ticks all his boxes, asshole again, and he takes her up, makes her pregnant, takes the baby, keeps the baby, sends her back, and pisses off. Ugh, classic asshole, don't you think? So not as advanced, because that's not advanced. That's not advanced at all. That's called asshole. So you see how we go from honeymoon to just heartbreak. Like you take a child, you take it. And of course, she doesn't see it like this at all. She doesn't explain it like this at all. And those on her side don't see it like this either. But you know what? I'm the filmmaker and I see it like that. But again, I'll present you with everything Because maybe you don't see it like that either.
But then Archon also sounded like a bit of a racist as well. Like, I mean, he didn't sound.
Oh, well, no, I'll let John Carney deal with that part, because I must say that was part of the, I think I should just give up now because that I uncovered very, very late in this journey, because the book I was working from was not the original book, which had all of that in. I had the New Age book, which a New Age publicist in the States and here took it and they put a new cover on it, and conveniently these very problematic lines were removed. So I never knew about this. And I mean, I'd like to think I pretty much know everything about the story. Well, as much as one possibly can with research and speaking to people. And then at the time, this was now before lockdown, but my then husband hated the story. He hated it so much. He just thought it was a potcuck, like many other people in the world. And I said to him, listen, you can think that, but then at least read the book, put a producer's hat on and see the potential of the story, because this is about potential of story. Mm-hmm. And he took the train to work, and my mum at that point went and found her original copy of the book. And he had that. I wasn't working off that. Remember, I had my new book. And then about a month or so later, he came to me and he said, listen, he is shocked and appalled. He hates it even more. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And that's how I discovered that. I would never have known. And thank God I did. Because there's people out there, let me tell you, and this I had to learn the hard way too. There's a few very far-right groups that use that book and those paragraphs almost as part of their manifesto for their evil deeds, or not evil deeds, but like to support their very warped idea of the world.
Wow. So this Archon, he sounds like a terrible.
He sounds like a Nancy.
I think so. And remember, Archon, his whole race, allegedly, they've got blue eyes and blonde hair. Even the animals are white. Like all the animals that they don't eat, of course not, are white. I'm not saying don't eat animals. I'm just saying they are so perfect and pure. They don't eat animals. They don't die. They don't get old. They eat the plant and it's a contraceptive. It's a very convenient planet for all the worst possible reasons. I mean, the plant is a great idea. I mean, I'd love to eat a plant and that solves a lot of problems. But when we go and unpack this nation or civilization, problematic, I'd say.
Yeah, we Will and I actually had a discussion. I think it was which podcast? Our first one. Our first podcast, we were actually talking about the breakaway civilizations and possible, the stuff that we're seeing currently is all probably German made, and you got because the Germans were trying to recreate this race of blonde and blue-eyed beings, and when Archon pops up, he kind of looks similar to their idea. So we thought, geez, the way he was acting, basically, well, I wouldn't say abducting the kid, but taking the kid. The ideas that he had behind himself is exactly what back in those days, Nazi Germany were actually trying to accomplish. So it was quite weird. We think about maybe it's actually not from outer space, but actually from closer to home than from a zillion miles away.
Maybe it was a breakaway.
Sorry?
I was thinking because it was a breakaway civilization because his race was too pure. Because obviously, if there was a small amount of people that broke away from Earth and were only breeding with each other the whole time, like they didn't have any other. Yeah. They had to come and groom somebody to purify the bloodline. It makes more and more sense that maybe it was a breakaway civilization.
And yeah, absolutely. And if you choose the right person, she will see it as romantic. And, hero on a white horse, apologies, white spaceship, whatever. But, this also actually for me resonates very much with Handmaid's Tale. All these extreme Hitlerish, I love that show so much. We are fast on our way, just with what we're doing to each other, to our own very version of that all over again. It's like, and I think that's what's interesting about Elizabeth is nothing that if you take the essence, the fundamental essence, if we take away this guy and his problems and what he did and all of that, and you just take the fundamentals of her message, excluding those damn paragraphs, because we deal with that. But the message of, and that's why I loved how Carney handled it, because Dr. Carney said, we need to find a new language, a language of reconciliation. And, reconciliation ties further into environmentalism, love, all the bloody big old cliches, which is really all we need. It's not that hard. We just can't seem to. But now, now people, there's a vendetta out on, like you said, maybe the cousins who, this is bullshit, spaceships, where maybe if we just sit around a table and hear each other out, we can even, they say sometimes when an argument's not worth it, if you say 1 + 2 is 2005, I'm going to go with it. Or the crown is green, but you say it's red, I'm going to go, cool, go with it. But at least I heard you out. At least I heard your reality. Because Elizabeth's reality was, this guy is awesome. He loves me. He loves me so much that he made me have a baby with him. And remember, she was 48. So hats off also to allegedly or not, that she wasn't 25. Like, that's the only high five Archon will get from me, is the fact that, and in fact, it's not his high five. It's her high five because she told the lie, allegedly.
Yeah, sure, because he could have gone for a hot 25-year-old. You're right.
Yeah, you know what I mean? So, yay, thank you. Yeah.
How old is her son, her other son? I mean, like, when did she have him? Was it earlier or later or afterwards?
Earlier. So she had David and Marilyn with her previous husband.
Oh yes, because I remember in the documentary, she spoke about taking her son to the place and they saw a spaceship, and he said in the documentary, like, yeah, I remember we went there, we were on the horses or whatever, but I didn't see any spaceship. I don't know what my mother was going on about. Or maybe, I don't know, maybe suppressed or whatever from, the whole UFO phenomenon, the memory gets suppressed or whatever, and there's all that argument.
No, he specifically said, he did touch on that, because that's the question I asked him. I said, David, what if he brainwashed you? And he says in the film, well, that would be really sad, because if I could vouch for my mum, because remember, he loves his mum dearly. He's had his own UFO experiences separate to all of this.
Yes, that was also cool, that he also had his own UFO experience.
Yes. So he's not saying, I don't believe, He's saying, I was there, this didn't happen, and if only I could be your witness, I would be the first one to say, I was there, this is the truth.
But that's also what the phenomenon always, in paranormal phenomenon, UFO phenomenon, all of it, it always gives you so much, but it always keeps it so vague, and it never can, so it's like part of that phenomenon that it would have actually done something, because he actually had his own UFO experiences, so it takes you that far in believing him that far, but then you can't actually vouch for that thing, which keeps it still mysterious and vague and weird, and he still leaves you on the fence. Was it true? Was it not? And it always happens at all of this phenomenon over and over again, that it can never just come out straight and be like, here it is, here we are.
But now I'm going to burst that bubble for you, okay? Because that specific example, she says they rode by horse from A to B. Now I have personally, I've gone back to all these spots a million times. Okay, a million. I'm exaggerating, but I've been there a lot. It is not possible to ride that with a horse. And that entire Midlands, as horse people, there's horse farmers, there's the greatest horse riders and horse breeders are there. You cannot ride a horse the way she said they casually rode a horse. So that's also a problem David has. The biggest problem for me out of all of this, and it's question marks, I'm not shooting anything down or up, is the fact that she wrote, and that's in the film, we don't want to give too much away, but she wrote a book in the 50s where there was no baby. Archon's name was a different name, and it was a different planet. And 25 years later, when the world became more open, we've had Woodstock, we've had Made Love Not War. It became a red hot love affair where babies was made on red velvet in a spaceship up in the sky. Do you know what I mean? I mean, even the way she just...
You're talking about a manuscript before that, or what?
Yes.
Oh, so you had you got the manuscript?
Well, yeah, it's in the film as well. We filmed some of it, but I read that whole manuscript. It completely contradicts the book written 25 years later.
Oh, wow. But that's also because when you interviewed I mean, why am I going blank now? Paul Slab. When you interviewed Paul Slab, I mean, he also said a very awesome thing. He said that he believes it up to an extent, but to get the word out, she had to put a bit of frills and stuff on the
You had to lie her truth.
Had to lie her truth, which I thought was quite amazing how he put that.
Yeah, that's my go-to line in most interviews.
Because like if you just stuck with the story and didn't have to, like, I don't know, but yeah. Anyway, I think it was cool that he said that.
But that's a documentary, right? We've got to go and find the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I think, but Elizabeth Klarer was not. I don't think she was a bad person. I think she had a good heart. I think I personally, this is my personal opinion, and I found no evidence to back this. This is my own gut talking now, so please note. But I think there is a trauma response to something, and maybe she had an experience of seeing something interesting, but this fantasy became a reality that made life easier for her, because I think she was probably an empath and she felt the pain of the world very, very deep in a time where we didn't even have words for these things, in a time where we were in the thick of apartheid, in the thick of women barely having rights. And it must have been tough for someone otherworldly-ish during that time, to maybe be a bit eccentric in that. And yet everyone loved us so much. I think the one thing that really resonated deeply with me through this whole process is obviously, like, I would say 10% of what we shot made that film. There's so many interviews that couldn't get fitted in because, it was duality or it was a repeat of something else. But I spoke to a lot of people all over the world. And even her greatest critics who met her would say, and this was the one, I still need to meet one person who did not say this, is that regardless of what their thoughts was on the story, she was mesmerizing. And there was something so otherworldly about her. She would walk into a room and the room would change. The room would not be the same again. And that for me is also very, very interesting. I think we all lie our truth a little bit. And every time that maybe we want to judge Elizabeth, we need to remember that so do we.
100%.
What a nicer way to end the interview.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah, thanks, Uga, man. Much appreciated for you coming on board and giving us a bit of a chat about and I hope it really does well, seriously. I mean, I enjoyed it. Guys must definitely watch Beyond the Light Barrier. It's on Prime Video. You can definitely get it. That's good old South African TV and video.
And then if you like it, go rate it on IMDb, but only if you like it. If you don't like it, stay away, please.
Yeah, I'll go and rate it. I'll definitely rate it.
Okay, thanks, guys. Ciao.
Cool. Thanks, Uga.
Bye.
Ciao. Yes, that's it for the evening. And hope to see you guys next week. Thank you for joining us on Strange and Mysterious World with William and Lee. And yeah, see you next week.